And now we're going to move on to, honestly, guys, it's just our opinion for the Sharks. My mortal enemy. They haven't gained much. They've only gained Billy Burns and Michael Gabriel. One from the Dragons, one from the Bulldogs. They've lost Wade Graham to retirement, Tuku Hau, Matt Ikuvalu, Matt Moylan, and Connor Tracy. They actually have the easiest draw out of all teams. It's ridiculous. They only play top 8 teams 9 times. Who they play twice? Raiders, Bulldogs, Titans, Cowboys, Rabbitohs, Dragons, Warriors, Tigers. So they play the Raiders from last year's top 8 twice, who we both think will drop, and the Warriors from last year's top 8 twice. All the rest, not top 8 teams.
Yeah, it is an easy draw, isn't it, John?
They do get one of the hardest games of the year for the Broncos. So they're playing the Broncos 3 days after Origin 1. So their hardest game, what should be one of the hardest games of the year, they only play the Broncos once. They get to play them in either backing up or weakened state. So that'll give them a bit of a boost as well. They got a really easy opening, kind of, depending on how you see the ladder playing out. But the Warriors is their opening game if they're playing Warriors in New Zealand. Then they got Bulldogs, Tigers, Raiders, and a bye. Then they got the Rabbitohs. So I would expect them to win.
Can't complain about that.
Yeah, like 8. I would expect a minimum 8 points out of their first 6 rounds, which will put them in the 8. Their run home, also very easy. Rabbitohs at home, so that's the second time. Then Titans, Knights, Dragons, Warriors, Sea Eagles. It's not the most difficult run home either. So they got a pretty easy run, actually. But all that aside, I don't think they have a very good team. They got a lot of talent across the park, like Talakai, Kennedy, Katoa, Ramian, Hines, McInnes, and Finucane. Obviously, Nico Hines. But I just don't think their team is super scary for other teams, to be honest.
Yeah, well, you touch on that, John. I mean, they've had real trouble in the big games in recent years. Haven't won a finals game since 2018, so that's a real problem. They've had 2 straight years of straight sets exits, so that's not ideal either. They're losing Wade Graham and Matt Moylan as well without any real gains, John. So there's really not a whole lot to get excited about. I wouldn't have thought. I'm happy to run you through that team if you.
Yeah. So you'll see the team. You'll see there's these players in there that are big name players, but they're not the players that strike fear in the hearts of their opposition.
Yeah, well, that's right, John. As you mentioned some of the names before. We got Will Kennedy at fullback, Sione Katoa and Ronaldo Mulatalo on the wings. He's real rocks or diamonds, Mulatalo, isn't he? He's a Jekyll and Hyde footballer for sure. Jesse Ramian and CSC for Talakai, you mentioned him before. They're in the centres. Braden Trindle and Nico Hines in the halves, obviously. Toby Rudolph and Braden Hamlin Ueli are the front rowers. Blake Brayley, the hooker. Britton Nakora and Teague Wilton in the back row, along with Dale Finucane at lock. On the bench, we've got Cameron McInnes, Oregon Kafusi, Royce Hunt, and Jack Williams. Yeah, see, the team sounds like, that's a pretty good team, but it's just not a scary team. There's no one in there where you just go, well, he's going to win. And, you have every now and then, Talakai had that match against the Sea Eagles last year that was just ridiculous. Nico Hines sometimes has these, phenomenal games that are just wow, he carried the whole team over the line on his back and things like that. But, I feel that no club walks into a game against the Sharks and goes, this is going to be a hard one. To Fitzy's fair point, John. Craig Fitzgibbons, their coach, obviously. This is his 3rd year in charge. First year they came second. Last year, second year, which was last year, they came 6th. And last year he signed a 5-year extension till the end of 2027. I don't know why they signed a 5-year extension, just because he made the finals twice. Yeah, John, I think with Matt Moylan going, I think Braden Trindle will get first crack at that 5/8 jumper. He played 7 of the last 8 games last season with Hines there in the halves. And I know they didn't finish the season very well, obviously, but I think that'll probably... he got a bit of an opportunity to build up a bit of continuity with Hines there in the halves, and I think that'll get him the jump on the other contenders for the 5/8 spot. So I think Braden Trindle gets that number 6 jumper. There's some other contenders. Cade Dykes, he's returning from an ACL injury though, so it's probably a bit of a risk to throw him in. Throw him into the hot seat there. Daniel Atkinson, former Storm player, spent the majority of the 2023 season playing at 5/8 with the Newtown Jets, but Trindle having that experience in first grade, those 8 games, or 7 of the last 8 games with Hines in the position, I think that gets him the jump there, John.
You see, when it comes to Nico Hines, he's kind of been around as a superstar in the making. He went and made his Origin debut, was completely wasted, and then he fell to crap after that. After he was dropped and he lost a lot of form. I don't know if maybe he's a confidence player, but that
seems like it, doesn't it?
If that can happen at any time.
Not being picked.
Yeah, exactly, and that can happen at any time as well. Like, going to come up to Origin. What if he's not picked by Michael Maguire and he feels slighted and he drops in form and so on and so forth. So. Yeah, so I just don't find them scary, and I don't think other teams will find them scary. There's a lot of great players in there. They're not like the Dragons, where it's 17 guys who are they're all individually brilliant, but they don't know how to be a team. They're a good team, but they're just super middle of the road as a team.
And so you got to ask the question. It's the Moneyball, the Brad Pitt Moneyball question, the famous scene in Moneyball where he says he sits down with all his recruiters there on the table and says, he says, well, what are we doing here if it's not to win a championship?
Yes.
And with Cronulla's team at the moment, they've got to be asking the same question. Are they happy just making the top 8 each year and going out in straight sets each year? Because it looks that way, John.
They've re-signed Fitzy for 5 years, just a continuation of something. I don't know, maybe he'll kick butt and stuff, and he's obviously a very fresh coach. There was a lot of raps on him. He has made the finals 100% of his seasons in charge.
That's the thing. But I said it before. I might have said it on the last podcast. If you're just going out in straight sets once you get there, which Cronulla are, they've done that the last 2 seasons and haven't won a finals game since 2018. If that's all you're doing, then what's the difference between doing that and not making the 8 altogether? So it's almost as if Cronulla are at a point where they need a reality check of missing the 8 one year and going, right, that they need a poor season to tell them where they're really at. Yeah. So they can then go and address the problems. If they keep scraping into the 8, they'll keep being satisfied with it and they won't address their problems. So I think, John, that I actually think they will have us. I know they've got an easy draw. I know you've been through that and you've done a lot of good research on that. I know they got a very easy draw, but I think they're due for one of those seasons, John.
I think so too.
I've got them missing the top 8 this year.
Me too.
I've got them finishing 11th, John.
Okay, I've got them finish 10th.
Yeah, so, John, I think they're going to miss the 8 this year, and I think it's what they need, John. I think they need to miss the 8 this year. They need a reality check. They need to be hit in the head with the reality hammer this year.
Yeah, so I think they'll miss the 8th. They'll come 10th between the Dolphins and the Bulldogs. So that will be, you got to think about it like that, right? Not only will they miss the 8, we both have them with the Dolphins beating them in their second year, ending up higher in their second year, even with such an easy run and even with so many good... I don't know when average became an insult, but they have all above average players. They just don't have these superstar, scary kind of guys in their forwards, in their backs, anything like that. And I think that if they can miss the 8, then they can change their recruitment and attitude a little bit to try and find that guy that will come in, like the Sonny Bill, who will come in and change their attitude and their culture, or the Wendell Saylor type purchase that can do
it really can, and they've got no recruitment this year, John. They've got no ins, and so that really, I sort of look at it and I go, well, that says to me that, well, you're satisfied with going out in straight sets every year. If you won't address it at the recruitment table, which they don't, John, they have not, then they're satisfied with where they're at, which is just losing straight sets in the finals every year.
Yeah, so they gained Billy Burns from the Dragons and Michael Gabriel from the Bulldogs, who are both fringe first graders from two of the worst teams in the comp.
Yeah.
So it really does say exactly what you're saying. Like they seem happy with where they are. And they're fine with it. And they've signed Fitchy to another 5 years, and they'll continue on as how they are.
And they're too scared to take their medicine, go down the bottom of the ladder and address their problem.
Yeah.
And that just says to me that there's a lot of people working there who just want to keep their job and say, yeah, we make the 8 every year. And rather than actually have the Brad Pitt conversation and go, well, what are we doing here if it's not to win a championship, or in this instance a premiership, obviously.
I think they spent a lot of time. The main thing with the Sharks is historically they spent a lot of time just trying to stay afloat as a club. Mm-hmm. Like they were so close to shut down. So they had so many odd past controversies and stuff. Like I remember a CEO or something accidentally punching one of the employees in the face, and they were almost. And now they had the peptide scandal, and they had these other things they wanted to build. Massive thing, and they got rejected, and it was just like all these issues. They spent so many times just thinking like staying afloat is where we are. Now they're afloat. They have a nice new renovated stadium with a car park next door or whatever. I don't really know what's going on with that. I went to a Sharks game last year or maybe the year before. It was awful. I had to walk 45 minutes from where I parked my car. And they had like what's it called, porta potties for the toilets and stuff. It was just terrible. But they just seemed like, all right, cool. We stayed afloat. Now we're happy where we are.
Yeah.
And they forget that it's a football club. You got to win games and win stuff as well.
Yeah. They won that premiership in 2016, and you thought, well, from there you can go. That their first premiership in their existence. It took them a while, John. And from there you can go one of two ways. You can go, well, this is the start of us winning, multiple premierships in the next little while. Or, we're happy with that. And we're satisfied, and we'll just rest on our laurels for a while. They haven't won a finals game since 2018, which was only 2 years after that premiership. So that just says to me that they were just satisfied with that 2016 premiership, and they've just been happy to rest on their laurels ever since.
That's something can happen in sport, and sports as an organisation is just like individuals, where you set your goal and you achieve your goal, and then there's no point in really trying anymore because I've achieved my goal. Yeah,
it's like Cronulla are having a club premiership hangover that's gone for 8 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
And it's going to continue the way that we're looking at it here, John. I just get the feeling with Cronulla that teams that are making a habit of going out in straight sets, which they've done it the last 2 years, you just feel as though they're about to fall out of the 8, John. You get that feeling that they're going to fall, that they're set for a fall. And I feel like it's the fall that they need to have, especially with clubs like. There were a couple of clubs last year who missed out on the 8 who were better than that. I think the
Cowboys.
I've got the Cowboys, the Eels, the Sea Eagles.
Yep.
I think they're 3 clubs who didn't make the
Rabbitohs.
8. Yes, another one.
Yeah.
4 clubs, John. There's 4 clubs last year that had underachieving seasons that all had top 8 capabilities who have now had a chance to get their house in order. And I think we've both got all those clubs in our 8.
I dropped the Cowboys out because of the Tomalolo issues. But
I think
you've got
them all, don't I?
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. And I've got 6th, 7th, 8th, but the only difference is the Cowboys.
So if you're going to have clubs that come into your 8, well, others are going to come out. And I think a club that's missed 2 years in a row going out in straight sets are ready to come out, and that's Cronulla.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's honestly, guys, it's just our opinion for the Sharks. Good riddance to them because I hate them anyway. They are my mortal
I don't
enemy.
hate them, John. I'm completely.
They're my
indifferent.
mortal enemy.
Oh yeah, as a Dragons man, they are your mortal enemy.
Yeah.
For me, I'm indifferent.
Yeah,
I don't care how they go, for good or bad. I couldn't care less.
They're not one of those ones that anyone cares about, well, except for their 37 fans.